I were part of the founding team at Westfield Labs back in 2012, which was the digital division of Westfield Malls. And so we were really kind of, I don't know how familiar you are with Labs.
No, I'm not. I have been with ICSC since, for just over a year now. And I have an extensive background in the commercial real estate industry, but it was back when it was one of the furthest behind in the tech world.
Okay. Fair enough. So quickly, so Labs was formed by Westfield Malls, really, as the world was waking up, back 2012, to the fact that Amazon was actually starting to take some real market share, and online was starting to really make a dent. And the idea was, as a shopping center company, how do we essentially become more relevant or stay relevant to consumers and connect to them more digitally? How can we connect to our shoppers more in a more kind of modern way, as well as connect to our retail tenants in a more meaningful way? And so Labs was formed primarily with folks like us who had not spent our careers in the real estate industry, but more on the digital tech side. We're based here in the Bay Area, so kind of a lot of us had been up through the tech world and startups, et cetera. And the idea was, can we, bring digital technologies into the physical shopping environment? And so we built a number of different things for Labs across the back end of Westfield, just in terms of unifying systems. And Westfield was a company that was founded in Australia, and then had a lot of malls in Australia, in the US, as well as the UK. And so they were almost like three separate companies. And so we did a lot of back end unification under the kind of the least sexy stuff, so to speak. And then as we built a platform, we were focused on consumer experiences. So things like digitizing the parking experience, where we were, license plate recognition as you drove into the center, and the boom gate would open, and your car would get charged. Indoor navigation. We built basically a digital version of the mall. So all the stores in the mall, all the products that they were selling, kind of an online mall, if you will. Food pre-order and delivery from the food court. And we also invested in some startups around last mile delivery, so same day delivery, curbside pickup, really kind of across the board. And so I think the takeaway from that is, while we probably tried to do too many things, the result was, at least for the experience that Kyle and I had. So I ran business development, Kyle ran product marketing, customer success, and what that meant in practical terms were, because we were doing so many things, we did not have a massive, if we had an engineering team to try to go build all those things, we had to be the size of Google. So most of the technology that we ended up launching, we had a core team that kind of built, I almost kind of think of it as like the Westfield operating system. We needed to go essentially license all the applications that were going to sit on top of that operating system. And so my job was to go find those companies, get the contract signed, and then as soon as the contract was signed, Kyle would really do the harder piece, which was working with our product and engineering teams to actually get that product launched and get it to market, essentially. And so, in doing that, there obviously were a lot of areas that we didn't have kind of native expertise on, but we were kind of required to quickly come up to speed, understand the landscape, understand the companies, and then, like I said, find the best ones and put them into play. And so we did that for a number of years at Labs, and then Labs was ultimately spun. We felt like there was an opportunity to commercialize some of the things we were doing beyond just the walls of Westfield. And so Westfield was acquired by Unibail-Rodamco a few years ago, European mall operator. And as a result, the transformation of Westfield was turned into a company called One Market, was then spun out on its own to go try to do these different things. So long story short, for the last year or 2 years, probably call it in 2019, Kyle and I we worked together for a long time, and said, there's an opportunity to kind of get back to our roots here. Especially we did some co-investing with some other mall operators, and I would talk to my peers and the Simons and the Mace Riches and the Taubmans of the world, and Westfield far and away, our group at one point was close to 75 people. And if you talk to an innovation group at another mall operator, that might be half a person's job. So we were far and away kind of putting the most resources behind that. And we felt like, gosh, there's an opportunity here to help all these other companies kind of get to where, we've been. And so, we saw 2020, we thought, wow, what a great year to start a business. And so we started Next Rivet, and really we're a digital to physical consulting firm. So it's really about helping real estate developers, mall operators, actually we work with restaurants as well, bring digital technologies into their physical shopping environment. And we can do that. We can work across a number of different projects. We have clients literally around the globe. And 2020 was a crazy year. There are a couple of things that we were able to kind of lean into, specifically around things like micro fulfillment from the shopping centers, helping restaurants, get online ordering, food pre-order, delivery, pickup, so essentially food-based fulfillment, and those kind of projects. So our niche in the market is, we can, versus somebody like a Deloitte or a McKinsey, are obviously much bigger companies than we are, but we can certainly come in and help you do the strategy, but our really to help and put things into action and roll up our sleeves and become part of the team to actually get things implemented. So a lot of our engagements start out as, initial like scoping or, in the real estate world, pre-development, like what are the things that we need to think about from pre-development perspective. But then once we make the recommendation, if the company likes it, then we'll stay on in many cases to actually help get them started and get those things going with. And what that means is, getting the contracts with the vendors signed, actually working with the vendors to make sure they're delivering on time, coordinating internal teams, really as much or as little as those companies need. Obviously, the larger shopping centers have a lot more resources than smaller guys, but, the inherent makeup of the shopping center or real estate expertise is not necessarily geared towards a technology background. And even the kind of traditional technology resources, as I'm sure in the real estate world, tend to be more IT versus developing kind of newer technology. And there's nothing wrong with IT, but it's just a different skill set than a lot of the newer technologies that it takes to build some of these kind of newer experiences and integrate these technologies. So we essentially try to sit there as the bridge to a lot of that. But like I said, it's not just about recommending something and throwing it over the wall. We really like to kind of get in there with our clients and really help them make it happen.
Can I ask this?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. It's sometimes it is actually easier to explain what a consultant does, because the consultant's like, we're going to do everything related to this broad thing. Like that's what a consultant does for others.
Right.
You're not going to limit the scope. It's whatever's related to this will help you with it within reason. I've been curious in within the context of your background with Westfield Labs, but is there a true long-term bottom line benefit or ROI to doing this at the shopping center level? I know we're talking about, nowadays, like what the customer wants is the right thing. Mm-hmm. Like if someone were designing a grocery store now, I don't know, but I feel like that old adage of putting milk in the back would not be what someone would do. That like, if they want milk, give them the milk up front. And that's,
right.
Give up the impulse purchases with curbside pickup. Like, so if we're talking about a shopping center providing tech, which benefits the customer and the tenants, the end user and the tenants, but it's got to be hard to implement centralized tech to serve a shopping center when you've got all these different retailers of various sophistication, and maybe they've got their own tech if they're national. Is there... You guys are in this, so the answer is yes, but is this worth it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to take it, but I can take it too. Either way.
Well, I mean, we found the same struggles with Westfield, because a lot of times we would try to implement something from a technology standpoint at the shopping center level, and then work with the retailers. But a lot of times the retailers would end up saying, that's great. This is going to help us at the 30 odd Westfield locations that are in the U.S. or across the globe. But I'm a retailer and I have 400 locations, mm-hmm. right? So I need scale. So a lot of times it's a wishy-washy answer, but I think a lot of times it depends on the actual tech and the actual solution that you're trying to put together. There are a lot of things that are going to need scale and the partnerships with the retailers, but then there are a lot of things that the malls can do with just those 30 locations. I think a single mall, it's going to be hard, but a mall that has right locations in the right cities with the right tenant mix, they can do some things. I mean, I think you're starting to see those things, or especially around fulfillment, when they're looking at using the location that they purchased as a real estate play 60 odd years ago to be dead center in the middle of a town. You're starting to look at that now as an Amazon and going, that's the most perfect location that I could possibly have for a distribution center. So they're sitting on a gold mine for a lot of times with this real estate location that they have, the infrastructure that they already have, kind of the natural built-in micro warehouses that are retailers that are kind of in their four walls and a roof. We always say that if you look at an Amazon distribution warehouse from the satellite view and put it over on top of a mall at the same time side by side, they look very similar, right? There's loading docks, there's a giant four walls and a roof, but it's also centrally located in the city to get to trucks easily in the same day. So I guess it's a long way of saying there are some tech solutions that probably don't work from the consumer facing side that need more of a network play across malls, and we tried to pull that off at one market, but again, that's a really hard ask to get all the malls to come in together and all the retailers to come together to make a network. Mm-hmm. But there are some things that malls can do where they are using their assets and their locations, to kind of pull something off that doesn't need this much scale.
It kind of seems like there is a need for this on the retailer side to give a little bit more authority at the store manager level for them to, especially if we're not talking about a national retailer.
Yeah.
Like they.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
The smaller to mediums. Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, you're right. When you have a big national retailer, it's difficult for any one store to make a big decision, right, without going back up to national. But I think though the way things are moving, right, that whereas before there's this natural tension, right, between the landlord and the tenant. I think everybody's especially COVID has accelerated the reality that everybody needs each other, and so the idea of sharing more data. If I'm a retailer going back to a landlord for some rent relief, one of the things the landlord's been trying to do forever is better understand what a retailer's sales are, not just to jack up the rent, but to actually try to put in programs in place to measure the effectiveness of those programs. And we've been advising clients hey guys, if retailers are coming back asking you for stuff, it's the perfect time to say, look, we're in this together. We're going to give you rent relief, but in exchange, there's got to be some type of value exchange. And so, I think obviously the mall industry does not move as quickly as other industries, but it is happening. And I think the other thing too. COVID didn't cause any of this. It's just accelerated what was already happening. And so, I think you will see more because you do, like you said, you need, in some of these cases, especially for consumer facing things, you need more landlord tenant coordination. I think that's starting to happen more. And I think, the idea that a retail, especially with things like last mile fulfillment, you talk about the consumer wanting the things their way. Last mile fulfillment just takes a bigger and bigger emphasis in that, right? Whether I want to come and just pick it up curbside, or I want it, my expectations, because Amazon has set those expectations that I can get stuff same day now. Like, the only way to do that realistically for a lot of these retailers is to leverage their store inventory. And they, for the longest time, they haven't even had to worry about necessarily knowing where all that store inventory is. And so there's this natural kind of upgrading of systems and collaboration. And, it's not there yet by any means, but I think there's still an opportunity for that to very much happen.
Being that the technology that allows this kind of store level fulfillment is something people regard as new and interesting and dynamic, it makes me wonder how the heck Circuit City did it back in the day. You just decide what you wanted, and then you went over there, and pretty quickly that box came off on that thing. So either things are more complicated than they need to be, or there was some kind of Herculean effort over there. But then again, Circuit City didn't last, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, part of it goes back to just at the start of e-commerce. Every business treated those as two separate business units. Every retailer, I mean, not every, but 98% of the retailers treated those as two separate business units. And those two separate business units never talked to each other. They had their own their own inventory stashes. There was never a sense of like, this whole thing is our inventory, and we'll distribute some for e-commerce, and we'll distribute some for the stores, but we're going to know exactly where everything is. No one started that way. And now they're trying to cobble things back together after 20 plus years of going totally different directions. They're trying to pull it all back together, and that's hard. It's the ones that started off with not treating them as two separate business units is the ones that are actually surviving right now, or not have as much effort.
I'm thinking about the bakery in my grandmother's neighborhood, where she knew the baker. So there was the avenue with the street front, but she lived on a residential street off the side. So I was allowed to like cut in through the parking lot and go in through the back, and he'd have a little treat for me. But I'm like, man, you could sell bulk back here. People would be all over it. He was on the start. I have two other quick questions. There's a benefit to retailers. There is a benefit to the shopping centers. Is there any opportunity for splitting the cost of these things, or for now and for the next 5-10 years, is it going to be just, if shopping centers want this kind of technology to exist, they're going to have to foot the bill and just offer it to retailers if they want to participate?
I think it's I don't think it's a forever thing. I think the real estate folks are going to have to make some bets, and I think they're going to have to make some initial investments to prove some things out, right? I think, but once things are proven out, there's no reason that, as long as you're proving out value to the retailers, there's no reason you can't start to charge retailers for that, because you're actually doing something for their business, right? And so again, I'll go back to the fulfillment example. As we're working with a bunch of shopping centers to figure out how they launch these kind of fulfillment hubs, forget even like a front end marketplace to the consumer experience. Just, can we help organize logistics on the back end, so you as a small to medium sized retailer who doesn't have the infrastructure or the best shipping rates because you're a massive retailer, can I get some economies of scale by aggregating stuff through kind of a central mall hub, and then partnering with delivery companies to make it more efficient for those delivery companies to come in, get packages, either get packages into the mall or get packages out of the mall. And then actually, when you look at economics around things like last mile delivery, I mean, it's not rocket science. The more packages you have on a route, the more efficient and cheaper that delivery is, because you're not one person delivering one package, it's now one person delivering, say, 8 packages. Mm-hmm. So if you can start to say, look, I'm saving you money, Mr. Retailer, by, making this more efficient for you to maybe pick, pack, and deliver out of your store, and leverage your store, not just for consumer facing stuff, but for the back alley stuff. when somebody wants to come in, but then also lower your shipping rates and things like that, because we're now kind of we're creating more volume and therefore driving rates down. Like if I'm a retailer, you're saving money. There's got to be a piece of that money that the shopping center can also benefit from, because they're actually making the retailers more profitable. And in my mind, and I think the biggest thing, we go back to all this technologies. It's at the end of the day, how do you make the retailer space like as valuable as possible? So if you can both do the consumer facing stuff when they walk into the online shoppers who just want it delivered home, but you're leveraging that physical space for extra storage or what have you, for extra kind of last mile stock, and that's a win for everybody, for the consumer, for the retailer, and for the center.
A lot of retailers right now to try and deliver to that promise of the same day delivery or whatever it may be, they're investing in warehouses all throughout the country. Mm-hmm. If they can double dip on their existing leases and not have to invest in those warehouses and actually get to utilize their existing space that they're using for brick and mortar and actually use it for a micro fulfillment hub, it just makes that lease and that relationship with that particular mall operator that much more powerful. And the only thing I would say is that all this business model overall has been, kind of standard practice for 30, 40 years of the malls trying something, paying for it themselves, proving it out, and then ultimately building it into either a marketing fund charge, raising the marketing fund that they have to pay for the retailers have to pay, or, increasing CAM, whether it's the common area, fund stuff. They usually will do these things on their own, make the upgrades, and then say, look, it works. We raised, traffic is up by X, blah, 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 whatever they do to prove out that, now it's time to raise the rent on or raise the CAM fee or raise your marketing fund fee. Yeah. There's an indirect way of sort of paying for this down the road after proving it out too.
We may see an evolution of the CAM acronym to maybe something like CASM, Common Area and Services.
Services, exactly.
Yeah.
Or,
yep.
Yeah. Use the word mall earlier, and that leads to that last question that I had. Now, if you think about an open air center, especially they're leaning toward one-stop shopping now, so maybe you've got once foot traffic rebounds, we might be talking about a lot of service retail that doesn't maybe that doesn't take advantage of fulfillment to the same degree, but perhaps that's not the only technology you guys are doing. But is there a value ratio on the size of a shopping center, the type of a shopping center, foot traffic, when centralizing technology doesn't have a payoff?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess another example from on the services side, right? Which is, we in talking with other mall operators, I think everybody's trying to figure out. It's not necessarily a centralized set of services, but it might be a set of services that the mall has looked into, or the real estate developer has looked into, that benefits the tenant, whether that's negotiating better rates or like you said, having, CAM becomes kind of common area services. It's not necessarily about aggregation, but it's more about, do I just have more things in the toolkit essentially to be able to offer my tenants, and sure, like the more tenants you have, maybe, the more that some of those vendors or services want to play ball. But I don't know if it necessarily means you have to be some massive shopping center to gain all these economies of scale. I think it's, still comes down to all the things they used to, right? Location, tenant mix. And as you talk about, I mean, what is a mall now? I mean, it's like, in terms of new development, it's mixed use. It's, everybody is, I don't know of anybody building new properties that are, just retail stores, right? It's residential, it's office, it's everything else. And so, I think that's another yet another area, which is like, how do you tie in that community, right? And you see a bunch of small companies now come popping up to kind of build the connected work life environment to where you live on a property, you get access to retailers, you get access to your gym and all the dry cleaning services and all the things that go along with that. So that's a really long-winded answer to your question, but I think it's all relative to just what's on the property and not necessarily a function of size. Certainly, that small little corner. We have a couple clients that are in that very small, like, hey, we own a block of a small town and there may be 20 shops. It's not always the easiest thing to do there where you have a little bit more scale and more budget, et cetera. But I think if it's a valuable enough property, then you have an opportunity, even if it's on the smaller side.
The mixed use example is interesting. It's depending on the structure. You could have a single owner or a single group of owners, or you could just need the owners of different uses to agree. But yeah, I could see some kind of VIP membership where if I live in the apartment above ground floor retail in a new mixed use kind of environment, then I can get within the hour delivery on groceries while someone else maybe has to wait a day, or
exactly.
Or maybe they sneak you up on the priority list for delivery for dinner.
Well, it's all it's food.
I'll give you a real.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I'll give you a real world example. So, Westfield Labs was located inside San Francisco Shopping Center, one of Westfield's properties, and we got as Westfield employees, we got a 10% discount on the food court. So, I mean, if that's not amazing, the dollar that I saved every day on my sandwich.
What was your go-to lunch spot? What was the name of the place or the sandwich you got?
Gosh, what was?
I had the Poke Bowl place.
The Poke Bowl place was pretty good. Yeah, you're right.
There was the Poke Bowl place down there.
We were there long enough.
Do I really want to order poke from a mall, basement shopping mall? But yeah, I did it.
Raise your hand if you bought sushi at a gas station.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's my egg salad sandwich from a gas station is my go-to.
It actually seems to have the longest staying power, because I remember traveling in Russia, and we had an overnight train trip, and we had bread and hard-boiled eggs, because that in 1993 that hard-boiled egg could just sit there, whatever temperature it was, and you were going to be okay.
Yeah, you're right. Yep. So it's a tiny little example, but it's actually exactly the type of thing you offer, right? Whether it's discounts or special services, or hey, like first look at our new, like the new line that we got in the store, special shopping hours for tenants or what have you. All those different ideas that you can tie into the residents of the building.
And allowing those businesses, giving them a platform to act as third-party vendors for office and, who knows, even hotel food services, because that is a difficult profit game for hotels to offer that food. Yeah.
I mean, your example of food is that's exactly what we piloted at Westfield Labs with the World Trade Center there. You're in New York, aren't you? Right. Mm-hmm. So when World Trade Center opened, and you had, the Westfield Mall down at the base level, and then World Trade Center 1 and 6 and all the ones that are around there, Westfield leased some of those buildings while Shorenstein owned them and all, but they leased them, and doing. Having access to have food delivery at lunchtime from, being able just to kind of order on an app, have it come down to the food courts, and then brought back up to the offices was, that was the big idea. Now we ran into some trouble with actually modeling out the financial on the delivery piece, and then modeling out, the security piece, because that's the biggest challenge, because you can't get security, you can't get food past the lobby. So in essence, you're ordering it, but you still had to go down to the lobby to pick it up. So there was not much of a trade-off between like the Grubhubs of the world and this, but that was the idea. And then, we have a client in Canada that we didn't work on this project with them, but they're doing the exact same thing. Their mall is next door to and built into an office building that they also own. And they have food delivery going up to the offices straight from the food court. That type of stuff, where it may not even be a discount, but it's just a time saver and an ease of use of what you're already going to do anyway. You're already going to go get food at that food court anyway. So how do you get it delivered?
Is this when we use the word synergy for people playing board meeting bingo?
Yeah,
yeah.
Pretty much.
Love that you said that. Yes. My least favorite word.
Okay, well, I mean, this is really helpful. What I'm understanding now is that you guys can just do a lot. You can advise on a lot. But the point is, with a lot of technology implementation, that for any company to feel the pressure of trying to figure it all out themselves, because how could one person do that? How could half a person, half their time, how could they do that? It just seems impossible. And
right.
And it seems in other industries I've worked on as well, you just need a consultant at some point.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that we always kind of landed on is whoops, David, you're breaking up.
He gets to break up and then interrupt you because he doesn't know he's interrupting you.
I was just gonna say, that was one of the things that definitely came as being part of Labs and in San Francisco. We had, we just by being the location that we were at, the de facto CEO innovation tours that they always took through Silicon Valley, and CEOs from all the different mall operators would say, hey, let's go see what's happening in Silicon Valley. Let's go to Facebook. Let's go to Twitter. Let's go to, whoever. And then they started finding out that, hey, there's someone else in our industry that's doing something around technology. Let's add Labs to the tour. We became a stop on those innovation tours. And every time those CEOs came through, they were just like, look, we'd give them our pitch because we were fairly open book about what we were doing. And, there truly isn't a ton of new original ideas as far as a roadmap goes in the mall space. And, inevitably 9 times out of 10, one of them would stop and say, hey, can you guys help us? Because, our team is thinking about the same thing, but they're just not able to kind of get over the hump and start going. So that's kind of where we, 5-6 years ago, as those people were coming through, and over the course of our time there at Labs and One Market, David and I were just like, there is this opportunity to be a consultant, certainly just for the, mall and property owner, because consultants for, direct to consumer, whether it's restaurant consultants or whether it's retail consultants, they're a dime a dozen. There's hundreds of them out there for innovation. I don't think that there's a ton that understand the mall space, understand the kind of the being a property owner and how to do innovation and how to help them kind of get over the hump. And David and I certainly, as we mentioned earlier, we've done so many different things at Labs. A bunch of them didn't work. They were beta things that just didn't succeed. We have no problem with our clients these days telling them don't do those things. Sometimes it may cost us some money from a project perspective, but we've certainly said, we've learned our lesson. We've done those things. Just don't do that. Try. What about this? Because we know we have a success in this area. So, yeah, I just think there's a lot of area for people that just don't understand the mall space and trying to help them get over the hump and just get going.
And I think the other piece to that is we're also, because we were this group, and you can imagine, it's like speaking tech inside a real estate organization, and a lot of times like speaking a foreign language, and vice versa, right? So I think the funniest thing I realized in my first year there was like moving a pixel on the page in their minds was like the core business was like, oh my, like how did you do that? The same vein, I'm like, how did you just like you guys talk about moving walls and moving stuff. It's like, it's just a matter of money. It's like, but they're like, we can do anything. And like, to somebody who grew up in the digital world, it was the same feeling, right? It was like, how do you just gonna move that wall? So I think it was just an interesting kind of like learning each other's languages. Mm-hmm. And then because so much of what we did still had to get budget approval internally, Westfield had a very complicated financial structure where a lot of their malls were JV'd with other, other investors. And so we were constantly having to explain what we were doing to people who didn't understand technology and kind of put it in layman's terms. And so I think we also have a lot of experience just kind of making it as digestible as possible and helping not only just doing the work for these teams, but helping them sell it through to their organizations. Because that's not always an easy thing to do, given that it is usually outside the level of just kind of core expertise for a lot of the management teams in these developers. So,
well, the key is that the individuals you were speaking to, they did not themselves know how to move that wall, but they knew who could, and they trusted it could be done. And every bit of tech always needs to get to that point where someone believes this can be done, and know who to call.
Exactly. Well said.
Thank you guys so much